a powerful force in Canada's underworld has fallen silent. The name Gregory Woolley may not be instantly familiar to many, yet within the hidden corridors of organized crime, he was a titan, a kingpin whose shadow loomed large over Quebec's criminal landscape. His story is one of ambition, influence, and an unrelenting quest for power, a rise from obscurity that would forever leave its mark on the streets of Montreal. Gregory's early brutal life. From humble beginnings in Quebec, Woolley was not born into crime but drawn to it, captivated by its promise of control and status. Like a moth to a flame, he was consumed by the allure of power. His ascent was meteoric, driven by intelligence, fearlessness, and an instinct for survival that bordered on predatory. Starting as a low-level street enforcer, he quickly carved out a reputation for being both strategic and ruthless, a man whose calm demeanor concealed a mind built for dominance. Woolley became a key architect in the intricate hierarchy of Quebec's underworld. He maneuvered through a web of rival factions, aligning himself with some of the most feared figures in organized crime. His network stretched beyond Montreal, reaching deep into other criminal circles, including those led by infamous black gangsters who held influence across borders. His empire was vast, his alliances carefully chosen, and his enemies numerous. But power is a double-edged sword. The same alliances that had fueled his rise would later turn volatile. Betrayal, jealousy, and shifting loyalties began to erode the foundation he had built. Still, Woolley remained unyielding, expanding his reach and asserting control wherever possible, determined to outlast the chaos he had helped create. Then, in the dim hours before dawn, the inevitable caught up to him. A burst of gunfire ended the reign of Gregory Woolley, abruptly, violently, and without ceremony. His story, steeped in ambition and danger, stands as a chilling reminder of how power gained through fear and blood can vanish in an instant. Gregory Woolley's name may have faded from public memory, but in the dark alleys of Quebec's criminal past, it still echoes with both reverence and dread. Gregory Woolley's empire once cast a long, commanding shadow over Montreal, a city that both feared and respected his name. His reputation echoed through the streets, whispered in fear by rivals, and spoken with admiration by those who stood beside him. From the back alleys of Quebec to the heart of Montreal's criminal underworld, Woolley's life became a testament to the dangerous seduction of power, a rise fueled by ambition, cemented through alliances, and haunted by betrayal. As his influence expanded, so did the number of enemies who wanted him gone. Power, after all, breeds envy, and in Woolley's world, the higher one climbed, the steeper the fall. His downfall came as suddenly as his rise. It was an ordinary Friday morning when the news broke Gregory Woolley, the notorious kingpin of Montreal, had been gunned down. The man once seen as untouchable was now another name on the long list of casualties in the violent chess game of control and revenge. The days leading to his death were shrouded in tension and quiet suspicion. Rumors of betrayal had been circulating for months. Some claimed internal conflict, an uprising from within his own ranks, while others whispered of an external strike, the long-awaited vengeance of a rival faction. As with most things in the underworld, the truth remains buried in layers of deceit and silence. Who pulled the trigger? No one truly knows. Theories abound: rival gangs, disgruntled associates, even close allies turned foes. Each suspect had motive, means, and opportunity. What is certain, however, is the ripple effect that followed. Woolley's death left a gaping void in Montreal's criminal hierarchy, a power vacuum that promised bloodshed and chaos as others scrambled to claim his throne. The streets that once trembled under his rule now hum with uncertainty. His assassination didn't just end a reign. It marked the closing of a dark chapter in Quebec's organized crime saga and the opening of another, one likely to be written in blood, betrayal, and ambition. Gregory Woolley's story stands as a grim reminder. In the underworld, no empire lasts forever, and even kings can fall before the dawn. Gregory Woolley's death did not just remove a man, it dismantled an empire. Whether his end came at the hands of law enforcement or betrayal from within, the result was the same: chaos. The criminal underworld of Montreal, once a well-oiled machine under his command, now operates like an orchestra without a conductor. A hive suddenly stripped of its queen. His absence left a void so vast that it shook the very foundation of organized crime in Quebec. Power, once centralized under Woolley's iron grip, has scattered like chess pieces flung from an overturned board. Factions that once coexisted under his rule are now in disarray, each vying for dominance, each determined to seize the vacant throne. The delicate balance that kept the underworld in check teeters dangerously, threatening to plunge everything into an all-out war for control. This power vacuum has transformed the city's streets into a tinderbox. Rival crews, gangs, and syndicates all see opportunity in the chaos. As they clash, the underworld threatens to erupt into open warfare. Gunfire replacing diplomacy, vengeance replacing order. Montreal, long accustomed to the shadows of organized crime, now stands on the brink of a new and bloodier chapter. Meanwhile, investigators continue their search for answers, combing through layers of deception, betrayal, and silence. Every clue, every whisper in the alleys, could be the key to revealing who wanted Gregory Woolley dead, and why. Yet in the murky world he ruled, truth is often as elusive as justice. One thing, however, remains undeniable: Woolley's legacy endures. His reign, defined by power, fear, and ruthless ambition, left an indelible mark on the fabric of Canada's criminal history. Even in death, his influence lingers like an echo in the corridors of the underworld, a chilling reminder of how absolute power can both elevate and destroy. Gregory Woolley's story is not merely one of crime. It is a parable of ambition unchecked, of loyalty corrupted, and of the inevitable fall that awaits those who build empires in the shadows. His rise and fall serve as a stark warning. In the world of organized crime, every king's crown eventually becomes a target. Hell's Angels Foundation. A decade before the infamous Quebec Biker War, Montreal streets were stained with blood as the Hells Angels battled the outlaws for supremacy in Canada. This brutal conflict, spanning 9 years, claimed over 100 lives as both sides engaged in relentless violence, determined to eradicate their rivals completely. Even after the war ended, the violence persisted, culminating in a shocking massacre where the Hells Angels turned on their own members. The roots of this story trace back to the 1960s, a period when Quebec was governed by the ultra-conservative National Union Party in partnership with the Catholic Church. Their strict religious policies made outlaw biker clubs appealing to many young men, who saw them as symbols of freedom and rebellion against societal conformity. Following the National Union Party's defeat in 1960, Quebec underwent rapid secularization, embracing more progressive social values. By 1965, the outlaw biker subculture had flourished, with over 350 clubs operating in the province, more than anywhere else in Canada. The abundance of clubs vying for territory led to brutal wars. Crime journalist James Dubrow noted, "There's always been more violence in Quebec. In the biker world, it's known as the Red Zone." Amid this chaos, one club stood out as particularly violent and sadistic: the Popeyes Motorcycle Club. Established in 1965 and based in downtown Montreal, the Popeyes engaged in drug trafficking, prostitution, loan sharking, and contract killings for the Mafia and the feared Du Bois Brothers gang. By 1968, the Popeyes boasted 10 chapters across Quebec with 350 members. That year, tensions escalated with a rival club, the Devil's Disciples, as both competed for control over narcotics in downtown Montreal. In May, a confrontation between the two groups turned deadly when a Popeye member fatally stabbed 18-year-old Jean, a disciple. This marked the start of a violent turf war. A month later, about 60 Popeyes and 50 disciples clashed in a baseball field brawl involving iron pipes, chains, brass knuckles, and bats. Police quickly intervened, arresting 60 bikers and hospitalizing 2 in critical condition. The violence subsided briefly following a police crackdown, but reignited in 1969 when French singer Johnny Hallyday visited Quebec. Hallyday posed for photos with the Popeyes and was named their honorary president. The disciples, also fans of Hallyday, saw this as a betrayal and sent him death threats. Tensions peaked when a disciple opened fire on Hallyday and his entourage at a restaurant, though no one was injured. The renewed hostilities resulted in multiple deaths on both sides. In March 1970, police mediated a sit-down between the gangs, but negotiations failed. By the end of the conflict, the Popeyes had emerged victorious, cementing their status as Quebec's dominant biker club. However, this success was short-lived, as new threats began to emerge. Outlaw biker Rod McLeod sought to establish a Satan's Choice chapter in Montreal, earning approval from the club's Ontario-based leader, Bernie Guindon. This new chapter allied with the Disciples to counter the Popeyes. Around the same time, the Hells Angels, the world's largest outlaw motorcycle club, sought to expand into Canada. Initially in contact with the Disciples, the Angels shifted allegiance to the Popeyes after witnessing their ruthlessness and mafia connections. They aimed to have the Popeyes patch over and become Canada's first official Hells Angels chapter. However, this expansion plan faced complications with the arrival of another American club, reigniting old rivalries and setting the stage for future conflicts. In 1974, several members of Satan's Choice traveled to Florida to meet with the leadership of the Outlaws Motorcycle Club, a group based in the American Midwest. The Outlaws, the second-largest motorcycle club in the world and longtime rivals of the Hells Angels, agreed to an alliance with Satan's Choice aimed at countering the Angels. The Outlaws became the exclusive distributors of the methamphetamine manufactured by Satan's Choice in their extensive network of laboratories hidden in sparsely populated northern Ontario. This alliance effectively blocked the Angels from expanding into Ontario, Canada's most populous province, while also allowing the Outlaws to gain a foothold in Montreal, enabling them to challenge the Popeyes, who were aligned with the Angels. By 1974, tensions between the Popeyes and Satan's Choice boiled over into a full-scale gang war, with the Disciples joining in as well. Both sides received significant support, including money and weapons, from their American allies, turning the conflict into a proxy war between the Hells Angels and the Outlaws. During this struggle, Popeyes member Yves Trudeau emerged as the gang's top assassin. Known for his sadistic tendencies, Trudeau killed multiple disciples and even scalped one, earning him the nickname Apache. Over 2 years of fighting, the Popeyes killed 15 disciples, which led the remaining members of the Disciples to disband to save their lives. During the conflict, 4 Popeyes and 1 member of Satan's Choice were also killed. After 2 years of intense warfare, a heavy police crackdown in Ontario and Quebec resulted in the imprisonment of senior members on both sides. Among those arrested was Bernie Guindon, president of Satan's Choice, who was sentenced to 17 years on drug charges. With their leader gone, Satan's Choice began to fracture. A schism emerged between chapters loyal to Guindon and those wanting to join the Outlaws. Of the 12 chapters, 8 patched over to the Outlaws, including the chapter in Montreal. The Hells Angels viewed this as a significant threat to their expansion plans. 5 months later, the Popeyes patched over to become the first official Hells Angels chapter in Canada. Yves Buteau, a charismatic and fiercely loyal leader, became the first national president of Hells Angels Canada. Buteau's first priority was to transform the hard-partying Popeyes into a disciplined, low-profile force. However, many members, including Hitman Trudeau, struggled with drug addiction and retained their violent tendencies. Tensions remained high between the newly formed Hells Angels and the Outlaws chapters in Montreal, as they had recently been at war. Frequent fights broke out whenever members of the two clubs crossed paths. However, fears of another intense police crackdown kept both sides from escalating. Until February 15, 1978. On that day, two outlaws entered a bar known to be frequented by the Angels, wearing Outlaws colors in a deliberate act of provocation. After being forcibly ejected by a group of Angels, the Outlaws stood outside, shouting obscenities. Moments later, a green car pulled up beside them, and the driver opened fire, killing one outlaw instantly and severely wounding the other. The shooter was Yves Trudeau. This incident reignited hostilities, and Buteau declared war, ordering his men to exterminate all outlaws in Quebec. A few days later, Trudeau planted a bomb under the car of the Outlaws' Montreal chapter president. The explosion killed the outlaw and injured several pedestrians. The following week, three Angels armed with automatic weapons stormed the Outlaws' clubhouse, injuring several members in a shooting spree. Retaliatory attacks followed, with gunfire, car bombings, and assassinations escalating the violence. By May 1978, the Angels had gained the upper hand, leaving the Outlaws demoralized. Buteau shifted his focus to Ontario, aiming to expand the Hells Angels' presence in the province. However, Ontario was an outlaw stronghold, and Buteau knew he needed an ally to gain a foothold. In October 1978, Walter Stadnick, president of the Hamilton-based Wild Ones, reached out to Buteau, proposing that his club join the Hells Angels. Buteau saw this as an opportunity to challenge the Outlaws in Ontario, and invited Stadnick to a meeting in Montreal. The meeting was meant to be secret, but Roxy Dumaresque, a high-ranking Outlaws member, discovered the plan. Dumaresque orchestrated a brazen assassination attempt on October 12, sending two hitmen to the Montreal bar where Stadnick and Buteau were meeting. The hitmen opened fire, killing two Wild Ones and one Angel, while critically wounding three others. However, both Buteau and Stadnick survived the attack unharmed, setting the stage for further escalation in the biker wars. The events coincided with a purge of members back in Hamilton, where the Outlaws killed 5 more Wild Ones in quick succession. By the time Stadnick returned to Hamilton, he discovered that the surviving members of his gang had voluntarily voted to disband the Wild Ones to avoid further wrath from the Outlaws. Despite not knowing any French, Stadnick accepted Buteau's offer to join the Hells Angels Montreal chapter. Over time, he rose through the ranks to become one of the most powerful and influential presidents in Hells Angels history, a story that will be explored in future discussions. After surviving the assassination attempt, Buteau learned that Roxy Dumaresque was behind it. Buteau ordered his top hitman, Yves Trudeau, to eliminate him by any means necessary. On December 8th, Trudeau spotted a man resembling his target walking down the street. Approaching him, Trudeau asked in French, "Are you Roxy?" When the man did not respond, Trudeau shot him in the head. The next day, Trudeau read in the newspaper that the man he killed was a German tourist named William, who hadn't understood French. Trudeau later laughed hysterically at his mistake, only becoming upset when he learned he wouldn't be paid for killing the wrong person. Trudeau argued that anyone resembling Roxy deserved to be killed, but his demands fell on deaf ears.